Alright, I'm gonna be blunt with this video. My original video on NyanWolf, quite frankly, sucked. I didn't show the seriousness of the situation, as I let more personal bias affect my telling of the situation, despite it still being factual, and I didn't present evidence of the NyanWolf situation as well as I should have. So, before this video starts, be warned that this video will contain these topics on screen. I will also be censoring a lot less of these screenshots. While this risks a channel strike, I believe that transparency and honesty is the utmost priority currently, especially with the nature of my last video. I've also been made aware of other factors that I'm going to be addressing and debunking on my video, considering I got a lot of backlash for the original callout, some of it being valid and some of it being not very reasonable. However, for transparency's sake, before I continue, allow me to take accountability and apologize for any potential mistakes I've made. First of all, I'd like to apologize to both my audience and the wider community at large for not presenting the evidence against NyanWolf well enough. I was concerned due to the nature of my video that I could not attach sufficient evidence on screen without the video instantly getting striked. This has happened before with my videos, and even though I thought personally that putting sources in the description was a good solution to this, I understand that the wide majority of people would not go to the description of the video itself and would walk away thinking the evidence was not sufficient. Second of all, I'd like to apologize to NyanWolf on behalf of my audience for any potential misinformation or harassment caused. While what I'm going to discuss later on my video is something I believe to be factual and presented with much more substantial evidence, I'll make it absolutely clear. Not once have I mentioned that NyanWolf is a pedophile or some sort of predator to children. I said NyanWolf is problematic and that their actions are a danger to the wider community at large. However, this is absolutely not a good reason to harass them or anybody I'll mention in this video at all. I'll get back to my reasoning for this once I've addressed the rest. Third of all, I'd also like to apologize for talking too much about how sick I was of Kevin and NyanWolf's content. This is mostly out of frustration of NyanWolf's actions and that how nobody was really aware of what they had done yet, and that anger boiled over. That was frankly really unprofessional of me, and I do apologize. Finally, I apologize for making the video half asleep. Quite frankly, when I saw the original evidence against NyanWolf, I realized that the community immediately needed to know about Nyan's complete and utter degeneracy, especially considering the history of controversy and the amount of harassment the Forsaken developers got over the removal of Kevin Jason's skin. This led to the video being quite frankly not as good as my usual output, and I do apologize for that. That being said, let's get right into it. Again, viewer discretion is advised. Alright, let's start over. What was so problematic about NyanWolf? If you haven't seen my original video, I go over allegations of NyanWolf liking, interacting with, and consuming degenerate pornography on an alternate account named Doggy Princess. However, before I get into that in detail, I need to prove without a shadow of a doubt that the alternative account, Doggy Princess, used for interacting with degenerate NSFW content, belongs to NyanWolf. So, I'll let Guagmo explain this part, since he worded it better than me in his video.
For starters, posts from the Like and Slasher account reuse profile pictures that originally came from NyanWolf's main artwork. On top of that, the art style across all of these accounts was nearly identical. It's very hard to miss. There's also the overlap with original characters. For example, the mercenary dog characters that were first posted in the Like and Slasher account later showed up again on the Doggy Princess account, but this time in content. And to make it even more clear, tweets going back as far as 2024 show people openly calling Like and Slasher NyanWolf months before any of these allegations even started blowing up. One of Traeg's tweets summed it up perfectly. Like and Slasher is obviously NyanWolf's alter alias, down to the same artwork style and stuff. Another Forsaken player named NyanKev added that Doggy Princess and NyanWolf are the same person, proven in 3 images, with screenshots showing the same original characters being used across accounts.
Now, allow me to address the criticisms that do not make any sense, or where people are strawmanning the issue. Let me preface this by saying, quite obviously, It is not a problem if an adult in a private space interacts with NSFW content, even if they are a public figure, as long as it's kept to themselves and far away from people. However, when it goes from a non-issue to problematic is when they cross the line from having just an NSFW account to interacting with problematic media, such as Feral, like Nyan had been interacting with. This makes it outright dangerous for someone like that to have a hand in a popular Roblox game, especially one with an audience comprised mostly of children. I'm not an advocate against furry culture. Let me make this absolutely clear. Most furries are very cool people. A lot of them are my friends too that I hold very near and dear to me, and they also disavow Nyan's actions for reasons I'll get into shortly. I got the definition of furries a bit wrong in my first video, so allow me to redefine it really quick. Furry: an enthusiast for animal characters with human characteristics. In particular, a person who dresses up in costume such as a character or uses one as an avatar online. Nyan was interacting with feral pornography. Feral is defined as, especially of an animal in a wild state, especially after escape from captivity or domestication, resembling or characteristic of a wild animal. By my definition, if what my original video suggested was true, this means that NyanWolf is consuming pornography of animals, even if it's fictional. While many people agreed with my video that consuming fictional pornography of animals, even if it's fictional, is problematic and possibly zoophilia, as you're getting off to animals in sexual situations, many others have argued that what he was consuming had passed the Harkness test. I really wish I didn't have to define this on my channel, but this channel has a teen rating for a reason. Alright, as you can see with the diagram on screen, does it have human intelligence or greater? Can it talk or otherwise communicate with language? Is it of sexual maturity for its species? If the answer for all three is yes, I'm not going to say that out loud. It's a non-human creature with sapience and all you need to, I'm not saying that out loud either. If you answered no to one or more, watch out. That's bestiality or possibly pedophilia. Don't do that. The illustrated guide shows you everything you need to know. The guide also mentions that body language is a dangerous road. As always, stay on the side of caution. Only rely on body language if... yeah, I'm not reading that part either. Right, so does this look like it has human intelligence? Does this look like it can talk or otherwise communicate with language? Does this look like it's of sexual maturity for its species? All of these are examples of just some of the many things NyanWolf interacted with on their Blue Sky alt. The problem with consuming feral content lies in the fact that, despite a character might indeed pass the Harkness test, you aren't getting off to that character's way of speaking, nor are you getting off to their way of thinking or intelligence. You're getting off to their appearance. If you saw a character that is quite literally identical to a wolf, down to every bit of anatomical detail, except its fur is perhaps purple, you'd expect that dog to behave like an animal, because that's the impression that the design would give at first glance. Just because it can speak and communicate at human levels, it doesn't change the fact that the appearance is quite literally a purple real-life wolf. It'd be the equivalent of looking at Scooby-Doo, saying it can talk and reason like a human being, and then going, oh yeah, I want to fuck him. It's quite literally just a talking dog. It's still a dog even if it can talk. That is why consumption of feral porn, similarly to the consumption of porn, can be considered utterly wrong and absolutely disgusting. At the end of the day, you would be getting off to characters that look like actual four-legged animals in the case of feral porn, or a character that looks like a literal child in the case of porn. Another counterpoint that was being made was that the characters in the artworks were not feral, which all it takes is having functional eyes is to notice how they are all standing on all fours, as well as some having very detailed and anatomically accurate animal genitalia that you just cannot ignore. Again, just because a literal animal would be able to speak and or consent doesn't excuse the fact that you are getting off on a character that quite literally looks like a real life animal. standing on all fours with an anatomy very accurate to actual real-life animals. Now, with that clarified, I'd like to get into NyanWolf's response. Quite bluntly, it's a pathetic manipulation attempt that tries to utilize his audience and weaponize them against me. This hasn't worked so far because even if feral defenders were raiding my replies, there were plenty of well-informed people on my side. Now, let's get into NyanWolf's response on their community tab. I know that I'm a cringy, weird, mentally ill furry, and that makes me an easy target, but it's wrong for people to falsely label me as the most awful and abhorrent things, even though the fact of the matter is that I've clearly never harmed anyone or anything in any way at all, and would obviously never ever condone or intend to spread evil or maliciousness in any way, shape or form. People are believing and spreading assumptions as if they are facts, either because they are not analysing and thinking about anything objectively and are simply taking statements at face value, or because they already have a personal hatred against me and need a justification to go, oh, I never liked them, I guess it's okay for me to harass them now, lol. It's why people literally pulled allegations out of their ass and spread rumors about me when it was a TikTok trend to hate them. This was never even a case where I did any harm, that's not even in the question. The whole point is just to bully and dehumanize because that's what harassment is, and whether people want to admit it or not, the end goal is always to lower someone's entire self or self-worth and turn them into nothing but a joke until they eventually leave the internet or off themselves, because that's what the culture is nowadays. I am not a perfect person, but all I've ever done is stay in my own lane and create my art, and all my actions have shown that I've always tried to spread positivity and be a compassionate and moral person for those around me, and all the people who actually know me as a person will vouch for who I am and what I stand for. But it's easy to assume and believe the worst about someone you don't even know personally, because it's a mean to justify hatred and bullying, and that's what the source of content and likes and views is nowadays. It was never about morality or doing what's right. It was always about jumping on the next trending topic. However, if people have already made up their minds, they will always find one way or another to pick up on everything you do and say to prove the hatred and affirm their own biases on who they think you are as a person. And regardless of what I know in my heart to try and prove, I can't really do anything about that. But no matter what biases you have on my animations, I still offer you love and positivity in your life, and I wish you the best, no matter who you are, because you are still a person behind the screen, and so am I. So is everyone else on the internet, even if that's an easy thing to forget. Be a good person no matter what. Nyan, you can dislike me and my content, but it genuinely hurts my heart seeing so many people jump that quickly towards labeling me as the most awful type of things and believing the worst type of assumptions about me. Though, regardless of what you think, I quite literally haven't even done anything close to ever harming anyone or anything at all, and never would, as that goes against everything I stand for. This is one of the worst possible responses you can make to a situation where you're trying to prove to others outside of your audience that you're not a bad person. In this response, the fact that they do not deny the alternative account existing is insane. Instead, they are deflecting all criticism as mindless hating and quite honestly self-glazing about how much of a good person they are. Like, look at this line. Turn them into nothing but a target or a joke until they eventually leave the internet or off themselves. Nyan, as crazy as this sounds to you, I do not want you offing yourself. I do not want you harassed. You just need to go get help, because looking at this content is seriously disgusting. Even if you are under the influence, there is absolutely no excuse for looking at deplorable content in this manner. Perhaps a better thing you could have done would have been to apologize for your degenerate conduct, rather than deflecting blame and writing me and other detractors off as just haters. Just because I mentioned that I disliked you and your animations, even if it was unprofessional, it does not instantly invalidate all my criticism. Second, Nyan then attempts to use somebody else's video and promote it as refuting points and pointing out biases. Let's read their post. They make a lot of good points in this video and help refute things and point out biases. It's wrong for people to falsely spread comments and videos saying I have caused harm or will cause harm, when there was never even any evidence of that at all. Such severe and life-ruining assumptions should not be made so easily, and I hope this vid helps encourage people to actually look at evidence unbiasedly and think objectively and fairly. Thank you dingus from the bottom of my heart. I wish you and everybody else reading this the best in life. While my video could have been seen as biased, what I presented against you outside of the immature stuff I've said is still problematic. And instead of addressing it on your own platform and apologizing for your actions, you instead deflect and spread misinformation by using this video as a source. So, let's get into why this video is misinformed and quite bluntly malicious, even though ironically they're also trying to accuse me of being malicious simply due to my dislike of NyanWolf and their content. Calling this video biased is an understatement. Just look at this. Not off to a good start in the first minute of the video you've promoted, Nyan. Let's see what else he has to say. This, right off the bat, is incorrect. The screenshots have already been proven to be Nyan's like and slasher account. If the accounts were false, Nyan wouldn't have reacted the way he did and delete the account once confronted. The art and accounts also tie right back to NyanWolf, adding further to the fact that the screenshots are real, as well as having the exact same typing style as NyanWolf. NyanWolf has also not publicly denied the fact that that art is theirs. I've already debunked this lie and proved that this art is indeed feral. One of the artists in question literally has their NSFW content labeled as feral on Blue Sky, as you can see in Guagmo's video.
I think what NyanWolf did is really disgusting, and what frustrates me even more is seeing people on Twitter try to defend this, claiming it's not really feral. That doesn't hold any water, at least when one of the artists themselves tagged their work as feral on Blue Sky. This means that this wasn't some vague gray area, it was exactly what people called it.
Wrong again. Blue Sky only has public likes hidden client side. Blue Sky's likes are available to everyone by using any third-party API or app. A simple Google search could have debunked this mistake. But I guess he was so invested in defending NyanWolf and slandering me that he didn't look into it. You must be genuinely stupid here. I'm going to be blunt. Are we looking at the same art? The people, quote unquote, blaming me are just Twitter degenerates who are okay with feral content and are downplaying the severity of their actions just because they like Nyan. Of course, when a popular person is called out, a defense is going to be more popular than the criticism, because people don't want their favorite person being called out. This is quite literally ad populum, a logical fallacy that claims that just because a point is popular by many people, it is correct. NyanWolf is a complete degenerate and a compulsive liar and manipulator. The only excuse they could have logistically had is the original one they claimed in the screenshots, being that they mass-liked feral porn when high. While being high makes it hard to think rationally for someone who can barely thought coherent thoughts, when under the influence, the fact that he did not immediately get rid of the likes or apologize until confronted shows that they regularly engage in this content. Even if you were conveniently somehow under the influence every single time you engaged in this content, this does not make it okay at all. In conclusion, NyanWolf, go get therapy and help for your impulses instead of hiding behind your addiction as some sort of excuse for your disgusting actions. While deleting the account wouldn't have been a completely bad or unreasonable thing for you to do, the fact that you only did it once called out for this conduct, as well as you not even taking accountability at the time when it was called out, shows that you really wanted to keep this hidden, and that your deflection and manipulation of your mass following shows that you haven't learnt or grown from this at all. You need to stay far away from Forsaken, Roblox as a whole, and get help. Let me make this absolutely clear. You do not deserve any harassment, and I never condone harassment of any shape or form. For the sake of yourself, as well as the people who have worked with you, do better. That being said, I'm going to end the video off there. As this is a serious video, I'm not going to bother promoting anything this time and just let you all draw your own conclusions. Have a good night.